Alright, there's Port Avon. We're continuing to move towards the unknown thing up there, which might be Port Prosper. Who knows? I need to actually click the X to get out of that map. Okay, I keep mistaking which of those things are things that I could crash into because they're on my level, and which ones aren't. Seems like we've got some kind of... not a day-night cycle because we don't have a sun around here, but something similar. The skies keep brightening and darkening. And we've got, from time to time... that looks like a sunbeam. Maybe it's just mist. Yeah, it looks like there's a fog setting in. Okay, that happens gradually. A rumble of far-off refineries. Distant searchlights rake the sky. Okay. It looks like we zoom in a little bit whenever we slow down. That's fair enough. Perhaps sticking to the lighter areas reduces the rate at which I gain terror, like it might have done in Sunless Skies. This looks like a place. Where is this place? Where am I? The lighthouse. Alright. So I've just arrived at an awkward angle of it. That's why I don't have a name for this place yet. It looks like the buoys kind of mark the boundary around an area? Costas Heights. Charles Cliff. It looks like the crashing either isn't fully implemented yet, or is fairly forgiving. Abaddon Spring, and here is Port Prosper. Queen's Cross Station. Crammed at the feet of a hulking crag, Port Prosper is a little London, divided into an affluent West End and an impecunious East. Queen's Cross is its busy station, the terminus of the Isambard line that begins in far-off London. Let's deliver the fastidious inspector. Oh, good. I could use some more fuel and supplies. She disembarks with her bag in hand and peers up at a clock tower that is being raised above the station. It is tangled with scaffolding and rings with the sound of hammers and the cries of workmen. Accept your payment. Thank you, Captain. Here is the balance of our agreement, and as promised, a requisition order for fuel and supplies. She casts another glance at the incomplete clock tower. Given the apparent state of construction, I'd recommend you visit the worksite. There may be an opportunity there. And thank you for the pleasant conversation, Captain. The sky can be a lonely place. You enlivened it. I have included a small additional sum in your remuneration as a token of my gratitude. Alright, more experience, 150 sovereigns, 3 each of additional fuel and supplies, bringing us to 5. They will pay for a delivery of bronzewood and stained glass. You may be able to purchase bronzewood at Port Avon or Trader's Wood, and glass at Titania or New Winchester. Cool. A new clock tower. They plan to call it the Albert Clock in memory of the departed Prince Consort. But there's a way to go yet. The roof isn't finished, and the clock neither ticks nor bongs. You can see the fastidious inspector up among the workings with a spanner and a can of oil, showing the workmen how it's done. So if I bring 1 bronzewood and 1 pane of stained glass, they may help me with that, despite the fact that I haven't asked them what they need yet. Probably going to be polished up later. Bronzewood, the foreman says bluntly. 1 consignment. They sell it at Port Avon and Trader's Wood, I hear. And a pane of stained glass, too. New Winchester's your best bet there. Or Titania, the flower town. We'll pay proper-like. You can purchase the necessary goods and return them to Port Prosper. You'll make a tidy profit. Be warned the materials aren't cheap, and they'll occupy space in your hold. Yeah, let's leave the clock tower be for now. The narrow streets of Port Prosper huddle in the shadow of a great crag. Bunting festoons the walkways, banners display the stony features of her enduring majesty. Wealthy West Enders strut by, exchanging polite greetings and veiled gossip. Meanwhile, sooty East End workers file to the hour of refining factories. Peeling posters promote fresh, wholesome lives in the reach to new arrivals, but many of the posters are years old. More newcomers arrive at Port Prosper than ever leave. I can attend a parade. I could recruit the clay conductor. Alright. Goodness gracious, Captain, he lumbers towards your locomotive. What a fine engine. He shakes your hand firmly. It's like being grasped by an avalanche. All aboard, then. I simply cannot thank you enough for the opportunity, Captain. In Sunless Sea, you could talk to all of your officers. That led to little questlets associated with each one. Write a port report. Factories continue to belch out smoke, while over the bridge, hopeful crowds gather outside the Admiral Nelson. Lovers can be seen strolling arm in arm along the promenade at a respectable distance from their chaperones. There was a brief protest outside the Windward Company factory, swiftly quelled. The scones at the Nelson were as good as ever, though the piquancy of the jam was less than might be desired. Alright, fair enough. Not much of interest. Let's attend a private meeting at the Windward Company? Sure. A message was awaiting with the station master. The envelope as crisp as a new banknote, the handwriting gilded and impossibly neat. Nice face there, mister. The parsimonious chairman's offices. The offices of the Windward Company on Port Prosper are elegantly appointed if antiquated. Paintings of old London and the Z adorn the walls. The parsimonious chairman sits behind his mahogany desk, a decanter of brandy at his left hand, and a series of neatly stacked reports at his right. A fire has been lit in the cavernous hearth. It is too warm. Listen to his offer. The note came from him. He promised an opportunity for profit. He pours the brandy into 2 glasses, produces a ruler from his desk to measure the amounts, and adjusts accordingly. When he is at last satisfied, he hands you a glass. To business. When he smiles, he reveals the extensive damage to his teeth. I was a pugilist back in London, a young man's game. Notable, particularly if you are not of the United Kingdom. This game does seem to have a pretty advanced realm of vocabulary. There's a lot of words in this that I think I'm going to want to go and look up after this session of playing. Pugilist, for instance, is... I do know what that means. It means he was a fist fighter. He invites you to join him by the window, where starlight dazzles the sloping streets of Prosper. A place like this is only kept safe by toil, you understand? The pioneers who built it, the politicians who funded it, the people who defend it from... His lip curls. The Tacites. Those who toil in such labor are rewarded. Proof is required, of course. Nameplates will do. We keep lists of their engines. So, I could, for the sake of this parsimonious fellow, go and hunt taxi locomotives. I would rather not take him up on that. The parsimonious chairman sighs like a man used to disappointment. He allows you to finish your brandy, and even makes a few polite comments on the provenance. Eventually he rings a little bell and his secretary appears to escort you out. My door, he says, is always open. Alright, so presumably I could go back there and decide to take him up on that after all. Attend a parade. It is apparently the Feast of the Red Saint. The Procession of the Red Saint. Gaudy banners fly over the painted rooftops of Port Prosper. The smog of the East End is hidden away by giant posters displaying dragons in varying degrees of vivisection. Alright. The cramped streets are clogged with people. Wealthy West Enders promenade about the amusements, while impoverished East Enders work the stalls and huddle by the chestnut fires for warmth. A painted dragon pursued by knights is chased through the crowds to a chorus of "Ho, the riding." Whatever that's a reference to, I recently saw another reference to it in a Discworld book, which I have over here next to my desk. Unseen Academicals, and they seem to be engaging in a similar pastime. That's the crinoline, the starch that gleams on the mustaches. You're sure you'll fit right in. lurking in the tents or manning the stalls in the side streets or scowling at the passing gentry. They seem more your level, or fraternize with everyone. Skyfarers are not limited by the rigid social structures of Port Prosper, though neither are they beloved for it. Let's continue standing on the middle ground. You are treated as a curiosity and viewed from all sides with suspicion. Still, you find yourself in conversation with an elderly colonel who has retired to Port Prosper. A bulwark of sanity, he calls it, a line in the sand against all the stuff out there. He introduces you to one of the riders in the procession, who takes you on a tour of the carnival. You converse with chestnut sellers and flower arrangers, drink in the outdoor pubs, and dance with several of the vaudeville players. At the end of the day, you've learnt many names and faces, and even acquired a few calling cards. You are tolerated by the prosperous West Enders. You are tolerated by the impoverished East Enders. A fire at the Fulbright factory. Windward Company representatives race past carrying heavy buckets. Alright. We can take tea at the Admiral Nelson. The most famous cafe in all Port Prosper is open today. The Admiral Nelson is Port Prosper's most exclusive tea house. West Enders congregate here to sit amongst the many little tables of ornamental shepherds and bulldogs, and drink tea from little saucers with Her Enduring Majesty's face on them. The Admiral Nelson is so exclusive, in fact, that it opens only occasionally, and never does anything so crass as advertise. People know by word of mouth, initially at least. Afterwards, most Prosperans join the queue. 83, 68, these dice are clearly colored depending on brackets of probability of success. Tea cakes for the porters, or take tea with the ladies who brunch. I could eavesdrop, or could engage in pointed gossip. Let's do what I'm better at, and eavesdrop, although I will say that this canister of tea over here appears to be mostly made of dust. I'm not sure whether that's intentional, and a comment on tea and the quality thereof. I succeeded in my eavesdropping. You make yourself as unobtrusive as possible behind a complicated flower arrangement. How very subtle. A viceroy and a duchess are engaged in a most unbecoming war of words as they jab their butter knives into a shared meringue. A young diplomat is apparently thinking of a fresh start for himself in Albion, having quite ruined himself with dissolution in the unknown frontier. A Skyfarer long thought dead has returned. To general disappointment, her stories about life in the Reach are very much not the thing. You are tolerated by the Eastenders. The parsimonious chairman is out on his morning constitutional. Eastenders steer clear of his route. Westenders track him down to make entreaties. Alright. So I can still go back there. I haven't really anything else to do at Queen's Cross Station. Fulbright's necessities. The only shop permitted to sell supplies to Skyfarers in Port Prosper, which is offering me exactly the same fuel and supply prices as were available in Port Avon. Nelson's Emporium, which will offer tea for 60 sovereigns the caddy. I'm actually going to start taking notes on some of these prices, which is something I made a habit of doing when I was playing Sunless Skies as well. Alright, where am I at? I am at Port Prosper, tea, 60 sovereigns. Can I sell anything here? Nostalgic crockery and barrel of unseasoned hours. I haven't seen that one before. A barrel encased in beeswax and stamped with the ministry's mark. Its contents sigh like the tide. I'll make notes of those and their prices too. And at Fulbright's I can just buy or sell fuel. Time to leave this port, I think.